It happened at the wedding reception, not during the toast, not on the dance floor. No. She waited until the cake had been rolled out until the cameras were aimed just right. That's when she did it. Julie shoved my face into the wedding cake. The laughter came fast. Some guests clapped. I heard someone whistle. Phones were out in seconds. There were flashes of light and then darkness behind my closed eyes. Frosting filled my nose. My lips tasted sugar and something sharp. When I pulled back slow, stunned, she was already laughing into Luke's chest like a child proud of a prank. He looked embarrassed, said something low to her, but she didn't stop smiling, and I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked around the room, cake clinging to my lashes, and saw what I needed to see. Who laughed? Who filmed? Who turned away? Let me know where you're listening from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story speaks to you, share your thoughts below. Don't skip, because what happens at the end will surprise you more than the betrayal itself. I cleaned my face in the restroom. The mirror was cracked on the edge. That part stood out to me. A jagged little fault line like the one that had been running through our family for years. I just hadn't wanted to see it. My sister Claire burst in breathless. Are you okay? I swear to God, I'll go out there and... No, I told her. It's all right. You call that all right? It's cake, I said. Just cake. But it wasn't, and we both knew it. Julie made a statement in front of everyone. And I let her because I needed them all to see it. Not the frosting, the cruelty. And maybe that's where you'll ask why. Why would a woman hate her mother-in-law enough to humiliate her like that? Well, that's the part that takes time. I didn't always live in a house with echoes. I didn't always eat dinner alone. There was a time not so long ago when I had everything I wanted, not money, not status, but something better. A quiet kind of happiness. A purpose. His name was Luke. My son. My only one. He used to call me after every big event, every promotion, every bad date. Even after he moved out, he'd still text me when he made something new for dinner. Would you eat this, Mom? He'd ask, sending a picture of some wild-looking chicken. And I'd always answer I'd eat it twice. We were close. Maybe too close for some people's taste. I was a single mom, had him when I was 23. His father left when he was 5. And after that, it was just us. I didn't remarry. Didn't date much, really. Everything I had went into raising that boy. And then Julie came along. The first time we met, she hugged me too tight. Her perfume was overwhelming sweet like synthetic vanilla. I smiled through it, of course. I always do. Luke was glowing. He adored her. She's the one, Mom, he told me weeks after they'd started dating. I know it. And maybe he did. Or maybe he just needed her to be. I didn't hate her. Not at first. But I knew how to read people. When you grow up around women who smile through pain, who host dinners with black eyes hidden under concealer, you learn to hear what words don't say. Julie said all the right things. She brought wine to dinner, called me Mom by the 3rd visit, offered to help in the kitchen but never actually did, and when she and Luke left, she always asked, "Do you think she liked me, but never did you like her subtle, but sharp?" Over time, things shifted. Luke came around less. Texts got shorter. Then came the odd comments. Julie says I'm too attached to you. Julie thinks maybe I should make some space. I didn't argue. Not then, because that's how you lose them faster. I've seen it happen to other mothers, One day, they're the center of their son's universe. The next, they're a guest in his life. But I never thought it would happen like this. With cake in my eyes, laughter in my ears, and my son looking away when I needed him to look at me. After I left the restroom, I went to my car. I had frosting on my coat sleeve. My hair was a mess. I sat in the front seat and turned the ignition just to hear something other than my own breath. Then I saw it. A message. Left just 10 minutes earlier. From Julie. You always wanted a sweet ending. I gave you one. That's when the cold inside me turned into something else. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even grief. It was clarity. Because if she thought that was the end, she didn't know me at all. She forgot who raised Luke. She forgot who stayed when everyone else left. She forgot what I was capable of when pushed far enough. And she was about to remember. Before the cake. Before the video. Before she took him away from me, one whisper at a time. I was just his mother. Luke was born on a cold November morning. I remember the frost on the hospital window and the way the nurse wrapped him like a burrito. He had this tiny frown right out the gate, like he'd been pulled out of something warm and safe, and didn't forgive me for it. I laughed when I first held him. I didn't cry. Not then. That came later. In the quiet. When I realized I'd have to do it all alone. His father Tom tried. For the first year or two, brought formula once in a while, sat awkwardly during birthdays. But Tom was the kind of man who wanted credit for effort, not consistency. Eventually, he stopped showing up. And then it was just us, Luke and me. I was 23, working 2 jobs, running on 3 hours of sleep most nights. But I didn't care. I'd take cold coffee and a cranky baby over any man's apology. Luke became my whole reason. I didn't just love him, I built my life around him. When he was 6, I sold my mother's ring to pay for his art lessons. When he was 10, I took a night shift just so I could afford to keep him in that private school he loved. When he was 15 and came home after school with a busted lip from some kid calling him names, I taught him how to hold his head up and not flinch. Don't become the storm, I told him, but don't bow to it either. He always listened to me. We had our traditions movie nights with bad popcorn, walks through the park, even in the dead of winter, and pancakes every Sunday no matter how tired I was. Even when he went off to college, he called every Friday at 8 p.m. sharp. Just checking in, Mom, he'd say. Sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. He told me everything. Until he met Julie. They met in his 3rd year. She was in marketing. Ambitious. Pretty. The kind of pretty that made people forgive her before they even realized why they were mad. When he told me about her, I could hear it in his voice, the way his words softened. He loved her. I wanted to like her, truly. I didn't need to be number 1 in his life forever. I just wanted someone who'd love him as fiercely as I had. But from the start, there was something. She had a way of pulling the conversation to herself, turning moments into performances. Even at that first dinner when I asked about her family, she gave me answers so polished they sounded rehearsed. Luke didn't see it. He was smitten. Lost in her eyes, her laugh, the way she touched his arm just enough to claim him in front of me. Still, I smiled. I always smiled. You don't raise a son alone without learning how to smile when your stomach turns. They got serious fast. 6 months in, he stopped coming home for long weekends, said he was busy, that they were working on something, a podcast, a project, some little thing that kept growing. Then came the mom we think we're moving in together. I nodded. Sounds good. But that night, I sat on the edge of my bed holding the old baby monitor I never threw out. Don't ask me why I still had it. Maybe because part of me always believed he'd come home in some way or another. When they moved in together, I sent them a housewarming gift, a quilt I made from pieces of Luke's baby clothes. Took me weeks to sew. I didn't get a thank you. When I asked about it later, Luke said, "Oh yeah, Julie didn't know where to put it. It's in the closet somewhere." That was the first crack. After that, the messages slowed. He forgot my birthday that year. Apologized 3 days later with flowers I'm sure she picked out. They were white roses. I hate white roses. He used to know that. But I kept pretending, because that's what mothers do when they feel themselves becoming obsolete. You fade with grace. You shrink to fit the corners. But you don't stop watching, especially when you notice that every time your son opens his mouth, he looks to her first, as if asking for permission to speak. Julie didn't need to argue with me. She erased me more gently than that. She made sure I felt inconvenient. "Oh, you didn't tell her we were going away that weekend. Oh, we don't really do that tradition anymore. Oh, Margaret, you're so sweet. But Luke's not a baby anymore. Death by 1,000 O's. And still, I tried. I invited them over. Bought wine I couldn't pronounce because she mentioned it once. Made dishes Luke used to love only to hear her say, 'Oh, we're doing keto now.' Keto. Right. So I started staying quiet. Not because I was weak, but because I was watching. Julie wasn't just charming. She was strategic. She didn't want to share Luke. She wanted to own him. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the day would come when she'd try to make a scene. Humiliate me. She needed me gone. Not physically, socially, emotionally. She wanted me erased from the photo album of their lives. But she forgot one thing. I was the one who took all the pictures to begin with. And I never throw anything away. The first time I knew something was wrong, it wasn't loud. It wasn't a fight. It was a whisper. Julie and I were alone in the kitchen. Luke had gone to pick up takeout. She was leaning against the counter with a glass of red wine, her eyes skimming the frame I had of Luke's high school graduation on the windowsill. She smiled at it, but not the way a person smiles when they're touched. It was the kind of smile someone gives before they drop a match. "You know," she said lightly, "he used to talk about you all the time when we first met." I glanced up from rinsing the rice. Used to Julie sipped, then shrugged. "Well, you know how it is. New life, new boundaries." I dried my hands slowly. Boundaries don't mean forgetting where you come from. She tilted her head, still smiling. "True, but sometimes where you come from tries to hold you back without even knowing it." It was casual, friendly even. But my stomach twisted. She didn't say it in anger. That's what made it worse. It was practiced, rehearsed. She'd probably said the same line to her friends over brunch. She didn't want Luke to be close to me. She wanted to untie him completely. From then on, I started noticing the pattern. She never corrected me outright. She just shifted Luke's choices subtly, always in the background. He started calling less, then texting less, then showing up to our dinners late. Eventually, not at all. "I'm swamped with work," he'd say, or "Julie's not feeling great," or just silence. But when he did come, he looked thinner, tired. Not unhappy, not exactly, just worn, like someone trying to live up to something. And Julie always smiled. At family events, she was the perfect guest, laughing at the right moments, complimenting everyone's outfits, helping clean up just enough to make people say, "Isn't she lovely?" But there were little moments cracks. Like the time I mentioned Luke's peanut allergy to an aunt visiting from Calgary. Just small talk, nothing dramatic. Julie chimed in too fast. "Oh, that. We're not even sure that's real. I mean, Luke's never had a serious reaction around me." I blinked. "He has EpiPens, Julie. You've seen them." She laughed. "I think that's more of a you thing than a him thing, Margaret." The way she said my name made my spine stiffen. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a challenge. I didn't answer her that day, but I saw it in her eyes she liked it that way. She thrived in silence she controlled. Luke didn't notice. He never noticed. One night I called just to check in. No reason. Just instinct, he answered with a distracted, "Hey, Mom. Everything okay?" Of course I said. I just hadn't heard from you in a while. There was a pause. Then I heard her voice in the background. Not yelling, not scolding, just prompting. He covered the phone, whispered something I couldn't catch. Then he came back on. "Sorry, now's not a great time. We're in the middle of something." "Of course," I said again like a fool. I hung up, sat in the dark, and felt the corners of my world shrink a little more, but I didn't call back. I didn't text. I just watched. Over the months, I kept tabs the only way I could social media. Group texts from family, a few scattered updates from Claire. Claire never liked Julie, but she knew better than to say it out loud. She's the kind of person who checks mirrors before opening her mouth, Claire once told me. That girl doesn't speak, she performs. I started writing things down, not out of pettiness, but because I needed to make sense of it all. Little things, comments, patterns, dates. Like how every time a holiday came up, Julie would plan a trip, a cruise, a mountain lodge, a couple's retreat. And every time Luke would say, "We'll see you after the new year," or "maybe next week," or "let's do something in the spring." Spring never came. The year before their engagement, they didn't come for Christmas at all. I spent the day with Claire watching old movies. Luke sent a text. Just one line. "Merry Christmas, Mom. Love you." No call. No video. No Julie. Just absence. I saved the message. Reread it so many times I memorized the rhythm of the words. I told myself, this is what happens. You raise them right, then let them go. Let them grow. But that wasn't it. Not really. This wasn't just him growing. It was her pruning, cutting away anything that reminded him who he used to be, who raised him. I didn't blame Luke. Not yet. I knew how people like Julie worked. They smother slowly, dress control as care, hide isolation behind intimacy. She was shaping him into someone more manageable, less loyal, more hers. And maybe you're thinking, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you fight back? Because I knew if I made him choose, I'd lose. So I waited, and I watched, and I let her think managed she was winning, because the real war hadn't started yet, but it would, and she'd never hear it coming. There's a point in every woman's life when she stops speaking her truth out loud, not because she doesn't have something to say, but because she knows no one's really listening. Not anymore. That moment came for me on a Sunday morning 8 months before the wedding. Luke and Julie had come for brunch, a rare visit. I made his favorite cinnamon French toast eggs, soft but not runny extra maple syrup, just the way he liked it when he was 12. He barely touched his plate. Julie scrolled on her phone for most of the meal, glancing up every now and then to fake interest when I mentioned old stories, stories Luke used to laugh at, used to tell himself. That morning I saw it. The space between us wasn't awkward. It was intentional, manufactured. Julie didn't want him to hate me. She just wanted him to feel nothing for me. And I saw how close she was to succeeding. After they left, I stood at the sink for 10 minutes scrubbing an already clean plate. My hands hurt. The water had gone cold. And I didn't cry. That part of me had already gone quiet. I decided that day I wouldn't argue anymore, wouldn't defend myself, wouldn't chase. I'd observe. I pulled an old notebook from the back of my closet, one of Luke's from high school, covered in doodles and worn corners. I began to fill it page by page. Not in rage, with clarity. I started writing down dates, conversations, changes, like how Luke's birthday dinners had shifted from backyard BBQs with cousins to exclusive little gatherings that never included me. Or how Julie began calling me Margaret more often than Mom, always in a tight tone, as if the word itself tasted sour. Or how slowly Luke's stories stopped including me entirely. He'd tell friends about growing up in the city we never lived in the city. He'd talk about how we didn't really do holidays. I kept every tradition alive by myself. He was rewriting history, and Julie was handing him the pen. I began to notice something else, too. Every visit, every event, Julie found a way to leave me slightly embarrassed. Oh, Margaret, I told Luke you'd probably make that same old meatloaf again. Classic. Margaret, you're so organized. You always remind me of a librarian. Did you mean to wear those shoes with that jacket? Always with a smile. Always soft enough to pass as just teasing. But they landed. Like mosquito bites. Tiny, constant stings until you forget what it feels like to be comfortable in your own skin. I never snapped. Never gave her what she wanted, an explosion, a scene, something to point at and say, "See, she's unreasonable. She's bitter." Instead, I smiled and kept writing. Claire noticed the shift in me. She said one night, "You're quieter lately." I nodded, just listening more. To what? To everything I said. I started checking public posts, wedding announcements, vendor bookings. Julie didn't know I still followed her cousin Marissa on Facebook, the one she only invited to events when she needed good photos. That's how I found out the wedding date had been picked, before I was told. I stared at the post for an hour that night. Marissa had shared a photo of a wedding venue brochure, same date Luke once told me they were still deciding on. I clicked through the comments. Julie had replied to one of her friends, "We're keeping it simple." Less drama that way. Less drama. I had never once raised my voice to that girl, never disrespected her, never crossed a line. But I was drama. Because I existed. Because I remembered. Because I knew Luke before she did. A week later, Luke came by to drop off a toolbox he borrowed. He looked tired. There were dark shadows under his eyes that no honeymoon glow would ever fix. I asked him gently, "Have you picked a venue yet?" He hesitated. A small one, but it was there. We're still deciding." Nothing confirmed yet. Lie. I smiled and nodded. "Well, wherever it is, I'm sure it'll be beautiful." He seemed relieved, and that told me everything. He didn't want to hurt me, but he was being managed, tightly, carefully. Julie had convinced him to lie for her. That's when I understood something deeply unsettling. Luke wasn't just being manipulated. He was being rewritten. The boy I raised would have come to me proud and open, excited to plan. This version of him looked down at his shoes when he talked. Julie had done more than turn him against me. She'd made him ashamed of loving me. So I kept going. I created a folder on my desktop, password protected. Inside it, I collected screenshots, audio clips from voice messages, photos Julie didn't know I still had, copies of texts from mutual friends who noticed the shift in Luke too. I didn't know what I was going to do with it all, not yet. But I knew I needed it. Proof. Not just for the world. For Luke. For the day. And I knew it would come when he'd look at me again, not as a nuisance, not as an obligation, but as his mother. The one who knew him before the performance. Before the cake. Before the script Julie gave him to follow. And when that day came, I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't throw her out. I'd simply open the folder and let the silence do what words never could. It started with a mistake. Julie made a mistake. A small one, but it was enough. Enough to open a door she didn't mean to leave cracked. It was spring, still cold enough at night to see your breath outside. I was walking through the grocery store debating between two brands of coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but I answered. Hi, this is Leanne from Bloom and Vine Floral Events. I just wanted to confirm the arrangement for the wedding in June. I didn't say anything. Leanne continued. We've got the full hydrangea arch blush roses and the mother's corsage in pale ivory as requested. Do you want that picked up or delivered to your address in, she named Julie's apartment building? I cleared my throat. I think you have the wrong number. A pause. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this not Margaret Ellison? It is. Another pause. Julie gave us this number for confirmations. Of course she did. But not to inform me. Not to include me. To control what I saw. I smiled into the phone. Everything sounds perfect. Thank you, Leanne. I hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't call Luke. I didn't text Claire. I just walked to the checkout, bought my coffee, paid in cash. Then I went home and opened my notebook. April 4th. Call from florist. Wedding booked. I'm not supposed to know. I sat with that page for a while, staring at the ink, watching the truth settle like sediment in a glass of water. They weren't just leaving me out. They were staging it, hiding the planning, making sure I'd arrive as a guest if I was invited at all with no say, no voice, no place. The corsage meant nothing. A flower pinned to someone you hope stays silent. I closed the notebook, opened my laptop, and started searching. Bloom and Vine. The venue, I found it in their recent tagged photos. A sprawling vineyard estate with antique chandeliers and polished marble floors. I found Julie in one of the background shots, blurred but unmistakable, laughing, holding a clipboard. That same too sweet laugh. The first drop of venom was never hers, it was mine. That night, I opened the folder on my desktop, created a new one inside it, June. I pulled everything in. Screenshots, voice memos, a recording of that florist call. It wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about truth. I couldn't stop what was coming, not without blowing everything up and losing Luke forever. But I could make sure I remembered. And one day, so would he. Claire came over that weekend, noticed the shift in me. You're calm, she said, handing me a mug of tea. Weirdly calm. I smiled. I am. Did something happen? I nodded. I got invited to the wedding. She blinked. I thought they hadn't. They haven't. Not officially, but I heard through the flowers. She stared at me, then sat down. You're not going to confront them, no. Why the hell not? Because I'm done fighting Julie's battles for her. If she wants to erase me, she's going to have to look me in the eye while she does it. I paused. And she won't. Because cowards don't stab. They leak. From that day forward, I stopped giving Julie any emotional access. I answered her texts with one-word replies. I let her plan, let her lie, let her believe I was slipping into the shadows one polite nod at a time. That's what made her bold. And boldness leads to mistakes. A few weeks later, Luke came over alone, unannounced, said he was in the neighborhood. He looked tired again, his skin pale, his voice thinner than I remembered. We sat in the kitchen. I made tea. He didn't touch it. Then he said, Julie thinks you don't like her. There it was. The bait. I could have defended myself, could have listed every effort, every softened word, every insult swallowed. But I didn't. I just said, why does Julie care? He blinked. She just wants to feel welcome. Does she? I asked gently. He didn't answer, just stared at his hands. Then I said something I hadn't planned to. Luke, are you happy? He looked up startled. What I'm not asking about the wedding. Not about her. Just you. Are you happy? He didn't answer right away. That silence told me more than words ever could. Then he forced a smile. Of course, I nodded. Good. And that was it. I didn't ask more, didn't press, because I needed him to start wondering why I'd ask that. Julie texted me that night. Thanks for playing nice today. Really appreciate it. I stared at the message. Playing nice, not being nice, not coexisting. No, in her mind we were in a game, but I wasn't playing. I was recording, and every drop of venom she dripped I caught. It wasn't much longer before she started slipping fast, careless. The pressure of a big wedding, the pretense, the perfect image, it all began to crack. I didn't have to do a thing. Just wait. And document the fall. Julie's mask started to slip 2 months before the wedding. Not in front of Luke, no, she was too good for that, but in the spaces where she thought I wasn't watching. The first crack showed up at her bridal shower. I wasn't officially invited. Claire was. And because Julie still needed the appearance of family harmony, she offered me a courtesy seat. That's what the email said. A courtesy seat. I went. Not to be petty, but to be present. Because presence for someone like Julie is more threatening than confrontation. She wore white lace and too much perfume, floaty sleeves and a forced laugh that never reached her eyes. The room was packed with her friends, all cookie-cutter polite, all calling each other babe. I sat near the back, observing, smiling, writing things down in my mind. Julie gave a little speech, thanked her bridesmaids, her best friend, her mother. Not a mention of me, which didn't hurt, not anymore. I expected it, but what I didn't expect was what happened when her best friend Callie gave her speech. Callie was tipsy, emotional, speaking faster than her filter could keep up. I remember when Julie first met Luke, she told me she wasn't sure. Like, he's so sweet, you know, but she wasn't sure he had enough edge. The room laughed, lightly. Julie's smile tightened. Callie kept going. She said, I don't know if I can marry a guy who still calls his mom 3 times a week." The laughter paused this time, just for a second. Julie glanced at me, then back to Callie. "That was a joke," she said quickly. Callie blinked. Yeah, of course." It was, she hiccuped, funny. We laughed. The bridesmaids shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. Julie picked up a glass and toasted, steering the moment away. But the crack stayed. Afterward, in the hallway outside the venue restroom, I heard 2 of her friends whispering. She really didn't thank his mom. She barely looked at her. I thought they were close. I didn't say a word, just walked past them slow, letting my heels echo louder than they needed to. That night, I added 3 pages to my notebook. May 3rd, Julie let the facade drop. Friends noticed. Callie slipped. Rewind the audio. Transcribe later. The next day, Julie texted me. "Thanks for coming yesterday. Hope you had fun." I replied with 1 word. "Lovely." No punctuation. No emoji. No warmth. She knew what it meant. 3 days later, another crack. Luke called. On his own. He sounded off. "Hey, Mom. I've been thinking about the wedding. We should talk about the seating." I paused. "All right." Julie was thinking maybe we do immediate family at one table, and then, extended at another. I waited. He added, "So, that would be me, her parents, and maybe her aunt." Silence. "And me?" I asked. He hesitated. "We thought maybe you'd be more comfortable with Claire and the cousins. Less pressure." There it was. I closed my eyes. "Luke, are you comfortable with that? Julie just thinks it'd make everything smoother." I let the silence hang. Then I said softly, "Okay, if that's what she wants." He exhaled. "Thanks, Mom." I imagined her sitting just out of view watching him say it, training him to believe his peace depended on my silence. But something in his voice that day, something flickered. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was a question he wasn't ready to ask himself. A few days later, I saw a story pop up on Instagram. Marissa again. Bless that girl's oversharing heart. Julie at a wine bar, hair down, glass in hand, laughing at something someone just said. The caption was innocent enough. Bride-to-be night out. Can't believe it's almost here, but the video attached told a different story. You couldn't hear everything, but you heard enough. Julie tipsy again, voice sharper than normal. "If she dares try to give a speech, I swear I'll die. She already had her years with him. This one's mine." Another voice chimed in. Whose speech? Julie laughed. "The mother of the groom's speech. Get over yourself, Margaret." Then laughter, glasses clinking. I saved the video, downloaded it, filed it in the folder, titled it May Euro 7 Julie No Filter. The slip-ups came faster after that. Julie tried to control the bridal party photo list, removed Claire's name, claimed it was a space issue. She scheduled a cake tasting on Mother's Day. Didn't invite me. Luke apologized for forgetting. I told him not to worry, but it was piling up. Too many small lies, too many little edits to the truth. The smile she wore, it began to strain. Her eyes started twitching at the corners when I walked into rooms. I kept showing up, calm, poised, unbothered. She didn't understand why I wasn't breaking. That's the thing about women like Julie, they mistake silence for weakness. But I wasn't staying quiet because I was afraid. I was collecting. And the more she slipped, the more complete the picture became. I didn't need to sabotage the wedding. She was doing it herself. One smile at a time. One lie too many. And I was almost ready. Almost. I invited her for tea. Not Luke, just Julie. I texted her the way she texts me, short, clean, no warmth. Hey, Julie, I'd like to have you over for tea. Just us. Friday at 4. No explanation, no fake pleasantries. Just a date and a time. She replied within 6 minutes. Sure. No emoji. No exclamation point. I could practically hear the suspicion rattling behind her perfect punctuation. That Friday, I laid out the table. Chamomile tea. Store-bought lemon cookies. Nothing too special. I didn't want her to think I was trying too hard. When she arrived, she wore neutral tones, a beige blazer pressed slacks, hair pulled back like she was walking into a deposition. Good. She came prepared for war. But I wasn't going to give her war. I was going to give her truth. Julie, I said, opening the door. Thanks for coming. She gave me a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Of course, Margaret. We sat at the kitchen table. She didn't touch the tea, just folded her hands and stared. So she said, What's this about? Straight to it. Perfect. I met her gaze and spoke calmly. This is about Luke. And the wedding. And the story you think you've written. She blinked once. Excuse me. I leaned back, keeping my voice low and even. I know you didn't plan to include me. Not really. Not in the seating, not in the speeches, not in the decisions. I think you're misreading a few things, she said quickly. I don't think I am, I replied, but I'm not here to argue. I'm here to give you something. I reached into the folder I had placed beside me. A small black binder. Inside transcripts, dates, screenshots all neatly printed and labeled. Not copies, originals, the ones that mattered. Julie didn't reach for it. She just stared. Her smile wavered. What is that? Your shadow. I said softly, everything you've said, everything you've done, every word you never thought would reach Luke. Her lips parted, not in shock and calculation. I could see her mentally retracing steps. You've been spying on me? No, I said. You've been broadcasting. I just listened better than you expected. She finally looked down at the binder. Is this a threat? No. It's a moment. I leaned in steady. You can still change the story. Julie scoffed. You think I care if you come to the wedding or not? No, I said. I think you care if Luke finds out who's been telling him who to be. That landed. She looked away. Her fingers tightened on her mug. She still hadn't taken a sip. I waited. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. You're trying to break us up, she said finally. I'm not, I replied. If he loves you truly, nothing I say will matter. But if what you have is built on lies and manipulation, it won't survive honesty. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke quietly, controlled. You think you're still the center of his life. You think he should revolve around you like he did when he was a boy. But he's a man now. He chose me. I nodded. He did. And I've respected that. I've stepped back. I've watched. But respect is a two-way street, Julie. She said nothing. I continued. You're marrying into a family, not erasing one. I don't need a front row seat. I don't even need a dance. But I won't be rewritten." Her eyes finally shifted. A flicker of something doubt, maybe. "Why are you really doing this?" I smiled, slow and certain. "Because he's my son, and because when the day comes that he sees the whole picture, I want to know I told the truth calmly, without anger and with proof." She stood suddenly. "This is blackmail." "No," I said. "This is a mirror. You can look into it or not. That's your choice." She hovered there for a second, clutching her bag, unsure whether to slam the door or say something else. In the end, she did neither. She just walked out. I sat there a while after she left. The tea had gone cold, but the air in the room felt cleaner. Claire called that night. "How did it go?" "She took the binder," I said, and I don't think she expected me to speak like that. She's used to smiles and small talk. Claire laughed low. "So what now?" "Now I said we wait." "Wait for what?" "For the real wedding," I said. "The one where truth stands at the altar." And deep down, I knew Julie wasn't done. She'd retaliate. She couldn't help herself, because once a mask cracks, the face beneath it becomes desperate. She'd do something rash, something public, something unforgivable. And I'd be ready. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and still. No official invitation. Claire and I sat in my living room that Saturday, folding laundry like we used to when the boys were small, the TV on low in the background. She was holding one of Luke's old hoodies, the navy one he wore in every school photo from 9th grade. "They still haven't sent anything?" she asked, glancing over her glasses. I shook my head. "Nope." Claire muttered something under her breath. "I won't repeat here, but I said I know the guest list." Her head turned sharply. "You what?" "I know the list. I pulled it from the vendor portal Julie accidentally left open on a shared drive." I let the sentence hang a moment. She stared at me like I'd just confessed to hacking the Pentagon. "Margaret, she doesn't know I saw it." "That's the beauty of it." Claire folded the hoodie slowly. "So what are you going to do with it?" I smiled. "I already did it. Because here's the thing. When someone decides to write you out, you don't scream and plead to get back in. You write around them." I didn't touch her plans. I didn't tamper with the seating chart, the RSVPs, the florist, the venue. No. I did something quieter, smarter. I called people, not to warn them, to remind them, to invite them. See, Julie's guest list had been curated down to a science. Tight, glossy, filtered. She left out half of Luke's childhood old neighbors, his piano teacher from 6th grade, my cousin Sarah, his high school best friend Ethan, who she always said was too loud. So I picked up the phone. One by one. "Hi, Sarah. It's Margaret. Yes, Luke's wedding is on the 17th. "No, I didn't think you'd heard yet." I didn't trash Julie. I didn't even mention her. I just connected dots. Called it a mix-up. Blamed the mail. And one by one they came back into the fold. They were Luke's people after all. And they remembered him. They remembered me. I reached out to Tom too, my ex-husband. That was a harder call. We hadn't spoken outside of basic texts in years. He'd remarried, moved 3 towns over, reinvented himself as a part-time novelist and full-time avoider of all responsibility. Still, I called. "Tom," I said when he answered, "this isn't about us. It's about Luke. You should be there." He was quiet, then said, "Julie didn't want me to give a toast." "I'm not asking you to speak," I said. "I'm asking you to stand there, to let him see you tried." Tom sighed. "You think he'll care?" "I think one day he will." There was a long pause. Then I'll come. By the end of the week, I had 20 confirmations. 20 people Julie had not counted on. I didn't crash her wedding. I simply returned his past to him. With full RSVPs. Quietly, legally, without stepping 1 inch outside the lines. Luke called me that Sunday. His voice was different again. Slower. Hesitant. Mom, are you inviting people? I stayed silent a beat. I've spoken to people. Told them the date. Why? He exhaled. Julie's upset. Of course she was. He continued. She said you're turning the wedding into a protest. I laughed soft without humor. No, Luke. I'm reminding people you exist. The version of you that used to exist. The one who loved these people. More silence. Then Mom, did you really meet with her? I did. What did you say? Nothing. I wouldn't say to you. He paused again. I heard something shifting in his voice, something like uncertainty, like the floor under his feet was starting to move and he wasn't sure where to stand. She hasn't been herself lately, he said finally. She's stressed. Tense. I didn't say what I wanted to, didn't say this is who she is, didn't say you're just finally seeing it. I just said planning a wedding brings out what's been buried. Stress doesn't create cracks, Luke. It reveals them. He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. After that, I reached out to one more person, someone Julie had been very careful to avoid. Her Aunt Rose. Rose and I weren't close, but I remembered her from the early days. She was the only person who didn't seem taken in by Julie's act. At a brunch once, she'd whispered, "That girl puts too much sugar in her sentences." I called Rose, told her the date, told her she was welcome. She asked one question. Does she know you're calling me? No, I said. She wouldn't approve. Rose chuckled. Then I'll be there early. I sat on my back porch that evening, notebook in my lap, watching the light fade over the trees. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt ready. Julie still thought she was in control. Still thought her guest list, her plans, her tight-lipped little world could keep the past out. But she forgot what happens when you close the doors too tight. The pressure builds, and when it bursts, well, even the wedding cake isn't safe. The rehearsal dinner was held at an overpriced bistro that served things no one could pronounce. You know the type. Square plates, waiters in black vests, candlelight that made everyone look just slightly uncomfortable. I wasn't supposed to be invited, but I showed up anyway. Luke had sent a group message earlier in the week. Hope to see you all Friday night like it was some backyard gathering. Claire raised an eyebrow when she saw the message and said, "Well, that's a change in tone." So I went. On time. Dressed simply like I always do. Neutral blazer hair pulled back a pearl necklace Luke gave me on my 50th birthday. I wore it for him, not for her. Julie's smile when I arrived was the tightest thing in the room. She looked like she'd just bitten into a lemon and didn't want anyone to know. "Margaret," she said, greeting me at the entrance with a light air kiss that never landed. "So glad you made it." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied with that same even tone I'd polished over the years, the one that tells you I saw everything and said nothing. Not yet. Inside, the seating had already been arranged. Of course, Claire and I were placed near the back at a table with the wedding planner, one of Julie's cousins she hadn't spoken to in years, and a man named Dave who spent most of the evening trying to guess if I was Claire's mother or her sister. I didn't mind. I wasn't there to eat. I was there to watch. Julie floated through the room like a pageant queen, kisses on cheeks, high-pitched laughter, endless reassurances that everything's just coming together perfectly. But I noticed the twitch in her eye when Luke wasn't next to her. The way she checked her phone every few minutes, the forced laughter that stretched too long, and I wasn't the only one. Rose arrived fashionably late, of course, wearing a deep burgundy wrap and a smile that meant trouble. Julie's face fell the moment she saw her. "Aunt Rose," she said stiffly, "I didn't think you were coming." Rose air-kissed her on both cheeks. "You didn't invite me." Julie's jaw tightened. "Oh, but Margaret did." Rose continued glancing at me. "And I never ignore an invitation from a woman who remembers who she is." Julie didn't respond. She couldn't. The room grew tense, just enough for people to notice. They glanced, whispered, adjusted their silverware, and then came the toast. Julie stood first, of course. Glass raised, perfect posture. Her voice quivered with that polished sincerity she always used when lying in public. "We just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. This journey has been amazing. And planning a wedding isn't easy, but it's worth every second when you look around and see this much love in one room." Polite claps, smiles. She nudged Luke to stand beside her. He did a little slower than she liked. He smiled, but not the old Luke smile. Not the one I remembered from all those birthdays and backyard dinners. This one was rehearsed. "Careful." He cleared his throat. "We're just grateful for every single one of you, especially those who've known us, supported us, and shaped us." His eyes flicked toward my table, only for a second. But it was enough. Julie noticed too. She grabbed his hand, squeezed, and then she turned toward me. And of course she said, voice softening just slightly, "We're especially grateful to Margaret for raising such a kind man. We wouldn't be here without her. So thank you, Margaret." I held her gaze as I lifted my glass. "To your future," I said. And that was it. No speech, no performance. Just 6 words. Calm, precise, unbothered. Julie looked relieved. For a second. She thought I'd missed my moment, thought I'd wasted my one chance to speak. But that was the thing. I hadn't come to speak. I'd come to be seen. To let every guest, every cousin, every friend, every vendor, and +1 watch the quiet elegance of a woman they'd heard whispers about, but never really noticed. Until now. I moved through the rest of the evening like fog through a field, present, untouchable. When dessert was served, I stood and made my rounds, said hello to the people who had once cradled Luke when he was still in diapers, shook hands with faces I barely knew but who remembered me, not because I shouted, but because I never left. And when the evening wound down and the room emptied out, I lingered just long enough. Julie came over with a tight smile. "Thanks for being gracious tonight." I nodded. "You're welcome." There was a pause. She wanted to say more. You could feel it, that buzz just under the surface. She thought I was going to back down. Instead, I leaned in slightly. "Tomorrow," I said, "the cameras will catch everything." She blinked. "What I mean?" "The wedding," I said smoothly. "The photographers. The footage. Every guest with a phone in their hand. So much to capture." I let that hang there like fog over the wine glasses. She said nothing, just walked away a little faster than she came. That night I didn't sleep. I sat up in bed watching the hours crawl by. Because I knew what was coming. She wasn't done. Julie doesn't leave well enough alone. She needed a moment, a spectacle, something to cement her power, and I knew down to my bones that she was planning something. The cake wasn't an accident. It never is with girls like her. But that's fine. She wanted me to taste sweetness, let her serve it, because I was the one who baked it. It happened just after the first dance. Luke and Julie had finished their awkward spin on the dance floor, the kind where he looked down more than at her, and she kept waving to people like she was on a float. The clapping died down. A few people sat. Some started talking. Then they wheeled out the cake. 3 tiers, white frosting with gold edges, dotted with real orchids and laced in edible pearls. I knew the baker I'd hired her for Claire's daughter's graduation years ago. Small world. I stood near the back. My table had the worst view, of course, but I didn't need a clear sightline. I knew exactly what was about to happen. Julie leaned in to Luke, whispered something. He nodded, uncertain, but he played along. He always did. They each grabbed a slice of the bottom tier, forks out, cameras up. Julie fed him a bite. He smiled, polite, careful. Then she turned, slowly, with frosting on her index finger, and walked straight to me. A spotlight seemed to follow her, or maybe it was just the phones rising. "Margaret," she called across the room, sweet and syrupy. "Come, try the cake." I didn't move, just smiled. "No, thank you." "Oh, come on," she said, laughing. "It's tradition. Mother of the groom has to taste it." "No, she doesn't," Claire muttered beside me. Julie was already walking toward me, the frosting still on her finger, her smile stretching a little too far. I rose, calm, controlled. I knew what she wanted. She needed a moment, a memory, a marking. She needed to humiliate me publicly to remind me that this wasn't my family anymore, that she was queen now. So I let her reach me, let her lift her hand slow like a pageant move. Here she said just a little sweetness to end the night. And before I could respond, she pressed her palm flat against my face. Not a gentle touch, not a joke. A shove. Direct. Firm. Frosting smeared across my cheek, my lips the side of my jaw. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone laughed. A few phones clicked, but mostly there was silence. Thick. Stunned. Julie stepped back, smirking. Whoops. I took a breath. Slow. Steady. Then reached for a napkin from the table. Wiped my face gently. Dabbing. Not scrubbing. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I glanced around the room, looked at the faces, the eyes, the phones. Then I turned to Julie. "You should smile," I said softly. "It's being recorded." She blinked. "Just once." Then I stepped aside and walked out of the spotlight. Back to my seat. Claire followed, grabbing my arm. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," I whispered, because I had seen it. The camera, the one I had paid for, hidden, planted weeks ago, a professional videographer hired under a separate vendor name, a woman named Tasha standing just behind the main photographer wearing all black, holding a high-res DSLR with full audio and facial tracking. I hired her to capture the real wedding, not the photoshopped smiles, not the rehearsed vows, the truth. She had it all. From the way Julie whispered into Luke's ear to the force in her palm when she shoved my face. And the best part, I hadn't told a soul. Not even Claire. I sat back in my chair, frosting drying on my cheekbone, and watched the room buzz. Luke looked horrified, torn, ashamed. He walked toward me, but Julie grabbed his hand, whispered something sharp. He paused, stuck, confused. I could almost feel the thread snapping inside him. And I knew this was the moment. Not the shove, not the cake. This pause, where he saw it all. Her performance, his silence, and my stillness. People don't forget dignity under fire. They don't forget silence in the face of cruelty. Julie tried to paint me as weak, bitter, overbearing. But she forgot when you attack a woman who has nothing left to lose, you reveal yourself. Later, after the bouquet toss and the awkward send-off, I went home. I didn't stay for the dancing. I didn't need to. I sat on my couch in the dark and texted Tasha one line. "Did you get it?" She replied within seconds. "Got every frame. It's clean. You want it raw or polished?" I replied, "Both." Then I opened my laptop, created a new folder, titled it Final Cut, and I smiled. Not because I'd won, not because she'd lost, but because when truth is filmed in front of witnesses, you don't have to shout it. You just have to press play. It went online 2 days after the wedding. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. All I did was send a private Dropbox link to one person, Ethan, Luke's childhood best friend. The loud one Julie never liked, the one she conveniently left off the invite list. Ethan had been texting me since the wedding. "Are you okay? Did she seriously shove cake in your face? Want me to say something? Post something?" I said no. Then I sent him the footage. No watermark, no edits. Just 27 seconds of raw, high-definition truth. Julie walking toward me like a runway model. The shove, the frosting, the audience frozen, her smirk, and me calm, dignified, utterly unbothered. "You should smile," I said. "It's being recorded." Ethan posted it the next morning, 7:42 a.m. on Facebook and Instagram with the caption, "Mother of the groom gets publicly humiliated by the bride and handles it like a damn queen. Watch till the end." It spread like wildfire. 10,000 views by noon. Local wedding blogs picked it up within hours. One TikTok creator posted a split-screen reaction video. Y'all, this is wild. I can't believe she didn't lose her mind. I would have tackled her into that cake. By evening, it was everywhere. People were tagging each other. "This is why I don't trust the quiet ones. She's dangerous in the best way." The bride thought this was a flex. It wasn't. Julie called Luke at midnight. I know because he called me at 12:13 a.m. He didn't say hello. He just said, "You filmed it." I didn't post it. I replied calmly. "That was Ethan." "She's hysterical," he said, breath shaking. "She said people are messaging her. She said her job saw it." I didn't say anything. She said, "You planned this." "I didn't plan her hand," I said. "She did that all by herself." Silence. Then, "Why didn't you tell me I tried Luke?" I said. "So many times." "You just weren't ready to see it." He didn't hang up, didn't cry, just breathed, slow, uneven. She said, "You manipulated the footage. You've known Ethan since you were 6. Do you really think he'd doctor a video?" More silence. "Luke," I said gently, "I didn't want you to choose. I wanted you to know." The line stayed open for 5 more seconds, then 10. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom." I closed my eyes. Because that was the first time he'd said that in 5 years. Not about missing a dinner, not about forgetting a birthday. About this. About seeing what he was never supposed to see. The next day, the comments got crueler. People found Julie's public profile. One person commented, "She's got all the warmth of a CEO firing someone during a hurricane." Another, "If I were the groom, I'd be rethinking the honeymoon." Julie tried to fight back. She posted a vague message on her stories, "Weddings are stressful. People see one moment and think they know everything." Wrong move. Because the internet doesn't forget and it doesn't forgive staged cruelty. Someone screenshotted the florist's original listing. A Reddit thread popped up. Someone shared the audio I had quietly recorded her voice at the wine bar laughing. She already had her years with him. "This one's mine." It got worse. Claire called me 3 days later. "Did you see her LinkedIn? No." She deleted it. Julie vanished offline for a full week. Luke stopped answering texts. But Claire told me he hadn't gone on the honeymoon. Told the travel agent it was postponed. Then Ethan texted me again. "She's calling people. Crying. Trying to get them to defend her." I replied, "Let them decide." And they did. One by one, the wedding guests, the ones who watched her do it, the ones who laughed, the ones who turned away, they started reaching out. I just want to say, I didn't know how to react. I froze. "I'm sorry I didn't say something. I was shocked. You handled it better than anyone could have." I didn't respond to most of them. They weren't apologizing for me. They were apologizing for what they saw in themselves. Luke showed up at my door the following Sunday. "No, Julie." He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't hug him, not right away. We just stood in the hallway 2 feet apart. He said, "I've been watching it. The video. Over and over." I nodded. "And I don't know who she is anymore." "You do," I said. "You just finally let yourself see it." He dropped his eyes. "I was so blind, Mom." "No," I said. "You were loyal." "There's a difference." He looked up again. His eyes were red. "I didn't protect you." "You weren't supposed to," I said gently. "I was your mother. I was supposed to protect you. Even from her." He nodded. Swallowed hard. "Is she gone?" I asked. He hesitated. "She's at her mother's. She said she needs space. And honestly, I think I do too." I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. He walked into the house like it was the first time in years he could breathe. Like he had taken off a jacket that had been wrapped around him for far too long. He sat at the kitchen table, the same chair he used to eat pancakes in. I poured him tea. The same blend I served Julie weeks before the wedding, only this time someone drank it. Luke sat at the kitchen table with both hands wrapped around his mug, like it was the only thing keeping him upright. He didn't sip the tea, just held it. Let the steam hit his face. I stood by the sink watching him from the side, pretending to dry a dish that was already clean. He hadn't been here in over 6 months, not since Julie started organizing their life like a set list. Who to see, when to visit, how long to stay. She'd never said, "Don't go to your mother's." She just made it inconvenient. And now, here he was, alone. No script. No Julie, just the version of him I remembered buried under years of soft erasure. He finally spoke. Do you remember that time I got food poisoning in 10th grade? I looked at him. The science trip. Salisbury steak. He half smiled. Yeah. You threw up in the principal's car. He laughed just barely, then looked down. You stayed with me that whole night. You didn't sleep. I watched cartoons while you shivered, kept swapping wet cloths. I remember he whispered, You didn't leave. Of course I didn't. He looked up at me, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't have that fog in his eyes, that veil Julie had placed there slowly, carefully, year by year. She told me you were controlling. I know. She said you were emotionally manipulative, that you made me feel guilty for growing up. I nodded. She needed to isolate you. It's easier to control someone when they only hear one voice. I believed her. I know. He sat back, rubbed his hands down his face. His voice trembled. God, Mom, I let her shove your face into a cake. I stepped forward slow and calm and placed my hand over his. You didn't shove me. I didn't stop her either. Silence stretched between us. And then I saw it, he said, his voice breaking. In the video, the way you looked at her, how calm you were. You didn't even flinch, because I knew what she needed, and I knew what you needed. He swallowed. You let her humiliate you. No, I said softly. I let her expose herself. His eyes filled, but he didn't cry. Not fully, just cracked. She said I'd have to choose, he whispered. And did you? He looked at me, eyes glassy. I don't know who I am without her. And there it was, the truth under all the noise. She hadn't just taken him from me. She'd taken him from himself. I tightened my grip on his hand. You're still in there. I raised you better than to vanish inside someone else's voice. He stared at me. Do you hate me? My throat thickened. No, never. I worried for you. I prayed for you. But I never hated you. Even after everything. Even after everything. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for years. We sat like that for a long time. No more words. Just two hands on a mug. Steam rising between us like something sacred. Eventually, H. Julie. She wants to talk. Says she didn't mean for things to get that far. That it was a joke. I arched an eyebrow. And do you believe her? He hesitated. I want to, but I can't unsee the way she looked when she did it. Like she was proud. Like she won something. I nodded. Because to her, she did. He shook his head slowly. It was never about love with her. It was about ownership. Yes, he looked at me again, pain written across his face. How do I even start over? I leaned in. You start small. You tell the truth. To yourself. To others. And you stop apologizing for seeing things clearly. I might lose everything. Not everything I said. You still have me. His mouth quivered. I'm scared. I know. He pulled his hand back, gently leaned over the table and rested his forehead against the wood. Like he couldn't hold up the weight of it anymore. Did you love her? I asked after a moment. He nodded into the table. Then mourn that. Mourn what you thought you had, but don't mourn who you are. He turned his head to look up at me. She said I was weak. You weren't weak, I said. You were loyal. And she took advantage of that. He sat up again, wiped his face. I think I need to tell people the truth. About what she did. About what I let happen. You don't owe them that, I said. You owe yourself peace." "That's it," he nodded slowly. "I don't know if we're done. I think we are, but I need space." "Take it," I said, "and take it on your terms." We sat for another hour. No more talk of Julie, just life, work, old memories. He asked if I still had the baby blanket. I told him yes, in the same drawer in the same box with the same faint smell of laundry detergent. When he left, he hugged me at the door, tight, like he didn't want to let go. And when he finally pulled back, he said, "Thank you for not burning everything down." I smiled. "Oh, sweetheart," I said. "I didn't have to burn it. I just let the truth light its own fire." He laughed through his nose. Then he walked back to his car, stood there a second before getting in, and I stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching the man I raised finally begin to return to himself. Not all at once, but enough to know Julie hadn't won. She just made me patient, and that patience had delivered something better than revenge. Clarity. It's been 6 months. No headlines, no big breakup post, no public declarations, just distance. Julie moved out of the apartment 3 weeks after the video made its rounds. She packed up in the middle of the night, apparently while Luke was visiting Tom. Left a note on the counter, 4 lines typed. "I never felt safe in your moth. No apology, no regret. Just blame cloaked in that same cold civility she always wore like perfume." Luke didn't try to stop her. He called me the next morning. Not in pieces, just quiet, settled. "It's over," he said. "I know." She didn't say goodbye. She never said hello either. He didn't argue. Julie had burned every bridge before she walked away, and I didn't need to light a single match. Funny how people like her call the truth dangerous, but only after it bites them back. In the months that followed, Luke started coming by more often. Not out of guilt, just habit. Memory rising to the surface unprovoked. We watched movies again. He helped me fix a cabinet that had been crooked for years. We started cooking Sunday dinners. Not every week, but often enough that it felt like old times in slow motion. He never brought her up. Not directly, but there were moments. He'd stop mid-conversation and say, "She hated when I did that." Or he'd ask, "Was I always that easy to manipulate?" And I'd remind him gently, "Loyalty isn't weakness, not until it's given to the wrong hands." As for Julie, I hear things. Rose told me she's living back with her mother, trying to rebrand. New hair, new city. She posted a quote recently, something about shedding toxic energy. It had 11 likes. 5 of them were fake profiles. That's the thing about women like her. Once the mask cracks, people don't look away. They stare. And they remember. She did reach out once. An email. Plain. No greeting. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Because the truth is, I am happy, but not for the reasons she thinks. Not because she left. Not because the video humiliated her. I'm happy because my son came back. Not crawling, not begging, seeing. Julie thought revenge would taste sweet on her tongue. She thought the cake would be the final word, but I saved the last bite. The one where dignity stood taller than drama. The one where silence cut sharper than screaming. The one where the woman she tried to erase became the whole story. And I don't need applause. I have my garden, my books, My Sunday dinners, my name spoken gently again by the boy who forgot how to love without permission. I have peace. That's the bite I saved for last. And it's sweeter than anything Julie ever served.